This podcast is brought to you by RYYZN Make Life Workout, a health and self-development platform dedicated to helping busy, everyday Kiwis manage their physical health and upskill their mental well-being.
Through sharing relatable and practical content from health practitioners, as well as showcasing interesting stories from interesting people.
For more shows, content, events, and coaching, head to our website, www.ryz-workout.com. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the High Frequency Club podcast. My name is Maori Wellbeing.
And I'm Sinead Beerman. We're here talking all things self-development, growth and mindset.
In this week's episode, we chat to the owner of Hauora Wellbeing Studio, entrepreneur and health and wellness ambassador, Heather Reid. She shares her journey on rediscovering her Maori heritage, the ups and downs of owning a gym, as well as practical tips on how to invest in your health and wellness amongst a busy schedule.
Yeah, Heather also touches on her perfectionistic ways and how she manages this. She also sheds light on her inspiration behind her latest collaborative project, the Soul Collective NZ.
It's a practical and super vulnerable conversation that's worth hearing, especially to know the hustler that is Heather Reid.
Let us know your thoughts once you've had a listen, and be sure to subscribe and follow along at the High Frequency Club on all your favourite audio platforms, as well as Instagram and YouTube.
Enjoy the show. We like to start where we always start, which is right at the beginning, because it helps us as your friends and listeners that are listening right now really get to know the person, you know, that sits with us today. So, bit of an entrepreneur, community leader, influencer. What do we need to know about your past to help us understand the Heather Reid that sits with us today?
What do you need to know about me? So I grew up in the UK. I think that's a big point. I grew up in the UK, and throughout all of my upbringing, I never really felt like I belonged. I couldn't find my place. I was jumping between friendship groups, and I just didn't feel safe and secure in the country. So then, kind of fast forward until I think I was 19 years old, I moved over here to Aotearoa. And that gave me this immense sense of just settlement. I felt safe. I felt like I was meant to be here. So that was kind of the start of the journey. Along that, there's been a lot of ebbs and flows around kind of what I wanted to do with my life. I was working in sales back in the UK. I was in a corporate job, and I felt like I was really helping people in the corporate world. And I had this kind of eat, pray, love moment where I went to India for a friend's wedding, and we had this beautiful buddy moon, and we went traveling around India, and it really struck me there and then the disparity between, you know, the rich and the poor, those who are fortunate and those that are not. And that was the moment where I realized, can I swear?
Yeah, 100%. You can be yourself.
I realized, like, fuck, I need to do more with my life. Like, I need to help people, I need to spread some kind of awareness, I need to do something, because what I'm doing right now just isn't enough. And that was actually the catalyst for me moving to New Zealand as well. So I guess, yeah, kind of got lost along the way, but in answer to your question, what do you need to know about me? I've been around, I've definitely learned a lot, and I think I'm old beyond my years, but my primary focus in life is just trying to help people. I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So.
When did you move to the UK? At what age?
Oh, so I was born in the UK.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
And then you moved to New Zealand when you were 19.
Yeah.
Were you always connected to your whakapapa and your Maori heritage?
No.
Interesting.
No.
What's the story behind that?
So I was raised in a very English household. Like, my mum moved to the UK when she was young, and my mum's side of the family are on Maori side. But I was always closest to my grandma, so my Maori grandma, my kuia. And I think just as I was growing up, I kind of felt like she was my main source of support, and she was always the one telling me about stories of New Zealand and her upbringing, and I just kind of, I felt like there was some connection there, but I didn't know what it was. And I still didn't really know until when I moved here and I started learning more, and I became inquisitive and was asking my grandma, you know, like, what's our iwi? Where do we come from? What's our story? And through that and connecting with other people in my family as well. It's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey, reconnecting with the whakapapa.
Yeah, so did that trip you out when you first came here and you started exploring where you came from?
Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I got off the plane when I first moved here, and I moved here to study. Like, I wasn't planning on staying here forever. And I got off the plane and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going back. Like, before I even left the airport, I just knew that this was where I was meant to be.
Wow.
So I think that kind of relates to, you know, like your tūranga waiwai and that connection that we have with the land. But I felt that from the get-go. So.
You spoke before about not finding a place of belonging. Where are you in that space now?
I think as humans, we're always searching for that sense of belonging. And I think I've come so far. I think I really know who I am, what I stand for, where I come from. And a big part of that was the reconnection to my roots. I guess for context, my dad was adopted, so I don't really know past my dad on his side. And then for all of my teenage years, I only kind of knew, you know, my mum was born in New Zealand, my grandma and her side of the family are Maori, and she was also, I guess, adopted in the Maori way. So she was whāngaid, which meant that I kind of didn't really know that side of the family past her either. So I feel like all of that kind of lack of knowing just created this block in the energy flow between, you know, my ancestors and me. And learning more about that has reconnected me and given me more of a sense of belonging. If that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. How so? Because if the blocker is with your mother and father, how did you then build your whakapapa?
A lot of learning, a lot of reaching out to estranged relatives, a lot of, like, for example, my Maori side, like, we have a little Maori Facebook group, and just kind of talking to people there and figuring out, oh, so you're my cousin or you're my great cousin. And I'm like, okay, so do you know so-and-so? What do you know about them? Tell me, you know, what stories do you have? And through doing that, and kind of as soon as, particularly with Maori families, like, you get to know one person, they're like, hey, come and meet my cousin over here. And it's grown into like this little journey that I've been on since moving here of just learning more and hearing the stories and figuring out who the fuck I am. So.
Can you speak fluent Te Reo?
No.
Ah, right.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's...
But you're on a journey of learning it, obviously, yeah.
No, I've been studying Te Reo for the past 3 years or so.
Yeah.
But as I'm sure you both know, if you're trying to learn a new language when you're an adult, it's bloody hard.
Yeah.
And particularly Te Reo Māori, it's a very spoken language. So you can learn it on paper, but you're really not going to learn how to use it unless you're in those settings quite frequently. So that in itself is a big challenge.
Is it quite emotive?
Yes.
Yeah, Tagalog, the Philippine language, is like that. Whenever people ask, oh, what does this mean in English? I'm like, I can't translate it. You've got to embody it. You've got, the hands have got to come in, your voice, your volume have got to come in. Yeah, because when we were messaging, I was like, oh, cool, I've got to know what these words mean, because you were speaking to me today. I was like, I've got to know what she means exactly. You know? So, based on you reclaiming your Maori heritage, how does that connect with your business, Hauora Wellbeing Studio?
So, I think one thing that I learnt pretty soon after moving here was this model called Te Wharetapawha, which is a Maori health model that's used more in the holistic health sense. And it's a model that's based off of this drawing or picture of a house or a whare. So you have these 4 walls, sometimes 5, that are the walls of your house. And these walls, they are super important to your well-being because they each stand for different aspects. So you have your mind, you have your social health, you have your physical health, and then you also have your spiritual health. And then in other models you also have te whenua, so you have your health, your connection with, you know, the land. And I thought that was such a beautiful principle to tie into what I wanted to create with kind of a studio or gym-based environment, was to have an emphasis on all of these different aspects of health. And I think that was one thing that really lacked when I moved here, was going to gyms and going to studios and being like, they're only focusing on my emotional health, or they're only focusing on my physical health. But what about everything else? And I think coming from a background of always putting one aspect of my holistic health first, and in turn that would then lead to a negative onset for the other aspects. So I thought finding that balance was really important, and helping people to find that could be a really interesting and beautiful journey to embark on.
Have you always been quite entrepreneurial? Like, what made you start up the Hauora Wellbeing Studio?
So I guess in a way I've kind of always been into doing my own thing. Like when I was, I think it was 13 or 14, I started my own dog walking business. So I was a little teenager running around walking people's dogs. Had a pretty successful business. Probably should have kept it, to be honest. But it's funny, I was listening to, I think it was the Tim Ferriss podcast with Chip, the owner of Lululemon. And he had this incredible quote, and it was something along the lines of, like, entrepreneurs are just individuals that are too incompetent to work for anyone else. And I feel like that's me. Like, it's not like I just struggle. And it's not because I have some kind of like power. No, it's just like how do I explain this? I feel like it's hard to find alignment with your values and someone else's values.
I feel you.
And when you know that you're putting in your heart and your soul, because that's what you do. If you love working and it gives you a sense of purpose, you're pouring everything into this business or this goal, and knowing that it's for perhaps something that isn't in alignment with you, or is lining someone else's pockets, or isn't doing the good that you know that it could do, I find that really jarring. So for me, yeah, I think I've always been someone that needs to work for myself, and probably always will be, in some capacity at least.
Yeah, I feel you. For me, it's the freedom, which also speaks to the freedom to do what I want when I want.
Should you?
Yeah, I remember my last job, I think I was like 24, and that was at the movies. Don't get me wrong, like, it was all good, apart from the fact that, like, what if I don't want to work today? You know, I don't feel like working today, but I think that this could be done better, but then you've got to stay in your lane at the same time.
I agree. I think for me as well, working with different like physio clinics over my years, I've struggled with that. When you have that hierarchy of like, this is how we do things here, and if there's been certain things that I've not agreed with, and I understand that a physio clinic at the end of the day still can kind of be a business, but there's times where I've been like, oh, that kind of feels a bit unethical to me, but you're saying we have to do this, when that doesn't sit well with me. And that's, over time I was like, oh, I kind of want to do my own thing, and then I can do things my way.
It's that freedom to be creative.
Yeah,
right?
to run things to run things how you feel that they should best be run. Like, it's hard to, as one person, change that within a big company or in a big business, to be like, oh, actually things could be a bit better if we did it this way. When it's like, no, this is the way we've done it. This is the way we're always doing it. I think that's when you kind of are like, okay,
that racks me up.
Do my own thing.
Just because it's worked in the past doesn't mean that it's going to work now. And that's been the demise of so many massive businesses, is that they get so complacent in this thinking of, okay, well, we had the monopoly 5 years ago, so we're going to always exist. No, you're not. There's going to be this new hip brand that's coming into play, and they're going to have this awesome culture, and people are going to be passionate. And then your clients are going to start being like, oh, I quite like the look over there. They're a lot happier than you guys are. So that culture and that environment is so important.
Yeah. What was the catalyst, the event that you were like, you know what, I'm starting up my own gym?
I feel like, what was the catalyst? I think it was always there. I think even when I was in the UK, I was really passionate about health and well-being, and nutrition particularly back then. And I always had this idea of having like a massive hub where you had everything under one roof, and you had, like your psychologist, your therapist, your counselors, your physios, you had maybe even a GP there, alongside a gym and all these facilities. Obviously, I don't have billions of dollars, so not yet. So that wasn't a reality. But then I think moving here and seeing that there was a real need to have something different, just a safe space, was kind of the catalyst, alongside walking into your commercial gyms and being like, I feel like a piece of meat, people are staring at me, why are they staring at me? I just don't feel comfortable and I don't feel safe to train. And I think that was a big thing, was talking to my girl mates and being like, oh, how do you feel about this? You know, what emotions do you feel when you walk into a gym? And it was pretty similar, and that was unsettling for me. And I think that in itself was enough for me to be like, okay, there is a need to have just a safe space. How do I make this into something that's really memorable and something that can make a lasting impact?
Just going back to, you know, creating your own business and the freedom to be able to create, as we all know, it all comes with the other side of the story, a lot of the things that people don't see, which is the risk, the pressures, the where to go next. For me, it always felt like I'm just making it up on the go and problem solving along the way, and sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. How do you deal with the pressures of owning a business? And also, like, you have a team underneath you, right? How do you deal with that? How do you manage that?
I don't. A lot of panic, a lot of stressing, a lot of self-talk. How do I manage it? I think I'm still learning that, to be honest. I think particularly with, you know, when I first started this, I had a business partner, and that was a godsend to have someone to bounce these ideas off of and to kind of rely on when the going gets tough or when things in your personal life are going on, to then be like, would you mind taking the reins for a little bit? Can you just help? And now that's not the case. So I'm still navigating that, but I think something that's really helped me is having that mentality of, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's shit now, and it's probably going to be shit for a little bit of time, but think of the bigger picture. You know, we are nothing but ants on this giant floating rock in this universe that we don't even know how big it is. So just coming back to that, I think helps.
Yeah, so you're the sole owner now. Yeah, right. How important is it now to have a support system around you?
Oh, super important. And I think that's been something that's been a massive learning from the past year or so, is realizing where that support system lies and recognizing that it's, I think, a lot smaller than I initially thought it was. Not that that's bad at all, but I think when you're running a business and you only have, you know, like half an hour spare in the middle of the day to see somebody for coffee, it becomes quite challenging to fit in those times of connection without planning in advance. And it's hard to recognize in yourself that, you know, if you can make the time, can they make the time? And then it becomes like this awkward period of, can you make, you know, 3 p.m. 4 weeks from now? And they're like, why can't you just do this weekend? I can't even remember what your question was now.
I think you answered it. Yeah, that leads me to the next step. So you had to leave friendships behind, because I'm the same, like I'm sure you are too. It's like, let's catch up. Yeah, let's catch up. 6 weeks later, I have not catched up, you know. And I almost feel bad by saying, yo, I've got this time in 3 weeks, and you're like, I feel bad. I feel bad.
But I think those people sort of, usually those friends, if they're in a similar situation, they'll generally understand as well. Like I find me and my girls now, every time we go for dinner, we then get out our phones and we book in our next catch up, which sometimes it won't be for another 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that we're all like, cool, does this Friday night suit for dinner? Oh no, I'm busy, I've got that. Okay, what about the Saturday night? No, okay, let's look for the following weekend. And sometimes it's like 3-4 weeks down the track, but we know if we don't book it in, it goes like 3 months and we're like, we haven't caught up or gone for a group dinner in so long. So we've sort of got regular with doing that. And I think when you're time poor, you're also more mindful of who you're giving your energy and spending your energy with, because if there's certain like friends that you find are a bit draining, or that the catch up ends up turning into like a bitch session or a whinge about something, you're kind of like, oh, I don't really, after a busy week, I don't want to spend my Saturday morning at brunch doing that. Like I'd rather be catching up with my friends that I know re-energize me and inspire me and like give me life on that weekend type thing.
I love that, 100%. And I think, paying tribute to what you're saying around that energy, everything in life is about that energy exchange. And I think when you start to really look at the relationships in your life, when you are time poor, like you said, you really notice when you feel shitty hanging out with someone, or when you feel like, oh, I actually don't really want to make time for you. And I think that's that moment when you're on this journey of being like, okay, something needs to change. Is this a me problem, or is this a problem between our dynamic as a friendship?
Yeah, how would you go about that conversation with a friend? Because I know there are a lot of people listening right now who's maybe outgrown their friendship, or in ways been currently stagnant in their friendship, where they know this friend is toxic, or maybe they're the toxic one, they just don't know. I don't know. But how do you go about that difficult conversation? How would you approach that?
How would I approach a difficult conversation? Okay. I think something I've learnt over this journey of fuckery of the last year, incredible journey, but I've actually really stopped caring about hiding things. I think, and it's something that I'm really proud of actually, is being able to be like just straight up about how I'm feeling with everyone that talks to me. You know, at the gym, if somebody says, how are you, Heather? I'd be like, okay, well, I feel like fucking shit. But I'll say it in a nice way that's not completely disheartening. But I think having that transparency and honesty in every aspect of your life can help you then have those difficult conversations in a way that isn't driven by emotion. You're not anxious about it. You can just say, hey, mate, I actually don't feel great about this. How do you feel? And that then, I think, puts down their defenses as well, which means that you can have a constructive conversation instead of it being just a you know?
So true, so true. I thought it was going to go a different way, say I don't give a fuck what other people think, but I like that aspect of I don't want to hide anything anymore. Did you go through a process where you were hiding things, like a people pleasing?
I wouldn't go as far as saying people pleasing. I think I was just, when I was younger and I was growing up, I was bullied quite a bit in high school. And I think because of that, I don't necessarily speak my mind, and I'm very happy just sitting in the corner, processing things and reflecting, but not putting it out. And with the upbringing as well of having quite, I don't want to say staunch, but kind of strict parents, there wasn't really that space to express openly. So it's something that, you know, to this day I still struggle with, but I just need to learn how to really express things. I feel like I got lost there.
No, I thought that answered the question. I remember after me and you went for a run at Fitness All Together and the Grave Runners event, we were chatting on our way back to the warehouse, and you said that you were trying to put yourself in more positions where you were outside of your comfort zone. And one of them was getting into a CrossFit competition. And I remember that conversation. I was like, oh, that's a great thing to be, you know, it's a great journey to be on, you know. Why was that important for you? Why is it important for you to be getting outside of your comfort zone? Because it's very easy to just stay inside of it.
So I think a quote that really helps me try to level up and keep aspiring to learn and to grow is, if you're not learning, you're not growing, and if you're not growing, then you're dying. Very stark quote, but I think having that mentality around constantly striving to be better and striving to learn, educate yourself, upskill yourself, and in turn pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, you're forcing yourself to just adapt. And again, over the last year, it's just been a period of mass adaptation to the point where I've just become this person that's willing to embrace every opportunity that comes. And I think that was kind of the catalyst of, hey, I've always pushed myself mentally in terms of, you know, how do I learn, how do I grow, but how do I push my body to that point and then use everything that I've learned with my mind to then help me get past those physical barriers.
Mic drop. You said recently in a post saying, you said, slowly making my way back to goal-centered training, no more survival mode. What's the story behind that, and what did you mean by that?
No more survival mode. So I think it's probably obvious the theme of this podcast is it's been a challenging year. And I think particularly with my business partner leaving and me kind of taking on this whole pakihi, this whole business by myself, it's been a hard balance of taking time for myself, because I see the business as my child, you know, like every spare second that I have, I want to put it into the business, into growing the business, into making it this awesome place where people can come and be inspired and learn how to move in a safe way. And with that, there's been this overwhelming sense of guilt around, I can't take time for myself. You know, how could I train? How could I go out and do this? How could I go to the beach when I know that I have all this work to do? And I think challenging that mentality around, okay, you can't pour from an empty cup. You're currently in this position. The work isn't going to go away, but you can look after yourself. And with that, that's going to increase your productivity. It's going to increase the way that you're feeling about yourself. And that's going to have a positive effect in the long run. So,
yeah, I feel you. Sometimes I come across those times and I've got to get real honest with myself and ask myself, like, are these tasks that I'm stressing over going to burn the house down? Like, is my life going to really be over if I do these last 2 tasks even though I'm so fucking tired? Or if I go to the beach this Wednesday instead of getting this stuff
done? How dare you do that for yourself?
I feel ya. So what are you doing now in your routine that you weren't doing previously?
Oh, the fun stuff. That it's still a balance. I'm still learning, but there's things that are becoming non-negotiables. Like the swim, I've got to do a swim at least once a day. And by swim, I mean a quick dip in the ocean and jump out. It's not really a swim. But that's something that really fills up the soul cup. Training whenever I can and trying to put it first into my diary. So when I'm planning the week, I'll plan my training schedule and then I'll put my workload on top of that. Because otherwise I just won't train. And that just cripples me. What else am I doing? Oh, one thing that I find is amazing is the 2-minute rule. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, by James Clear, yeah.
Yes.
Just do something for 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Why don't you explain to everyone else what the 2-minute rule is?
Okay, so my understanding, or at least my interpretation of the 2-minute rule is when you're doing whatever it is you're doing your admin, you're doing, you know, your life stuff, and you see or remember something that you need to do that would take less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Because that 2 minutes, unless you're in a deep state of flow, you can compromise on those 2 minutes, so you can give them up. And I find that's really helped. Otherwise, I put it on the to-do list and I will strategically go through all of the 2 minutes first, and then by the time it's come around to doing the big stuff, I'm like, oh, well, time for a coffee, you know, time for a break, and then I've lost it. So. Yeah,
I apply that principle to my training, because my least favorite way to train right now is strength training, because I'm by myself. So I find it difficult to schedule in, and when I do schedule it in, I can feel all the blockers come in saying, just do it in an hour's time. Maybe you're hungry. All these excuses come up. But I'm like, okay, I'll get changed first and I'll just do one set. One set takes 2 minutes, and if I still feel like I don't want to do it, I'll quit. But it never happens, because you're already changed. You're already in your first set, or I'm already in my first set. So I end up, it's the momentum. The point is to get the momentum going, and yeah, you'll end up finishing it more than likely.
I love that. And I love that you're sharing that as well, because I think it's important for somebody that works in the industry to be like, hey, I have my barriers, I struggle at times too, this is what I do.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so empathetic for people, towards people who either don't want to train or struggle to train, because like you just don't know what's going on in their lives. Like in my Instagram bio, I help people strength train, and like I'm the one that struggles to fucking strength train too. So all the shit that I tell my clients, I always tell them, like, I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you, by the way. You know, this is we're both getting this advice. Yeah, what have you learned in business that applies to everyday life for you?
What have I learned in business that applies to everyday life? Can I say 2 things?
You can say as many things. This is the Heather Reid show.
What have I learned in business? So I think the two main takeaways from the business world that I would apply to life is, like I've said before, stop giving a fuck. Like, actually just stop. Stop with the anxieties, take a moment, take that step back, breathe, and be like, is this really worthy of my worries? Do I have the energy today to be worried about this right now? And I think that's transferable in all aspects of our lives, and it's helped me massively, particularly with anxiety and managing those anxious feelings of, to worry is to, to experience something bad twice. Something like that.
Yeah, that's right. To try and predict that something's going bad is going to happen.
Exactly, and in turn you're also manifesting that. So take a step back, breathe, think, do I have the energy to put into this worry right now? And the second thing, I had a second thing and it's gone.
Maybe it'll pop open again. But yeah, so much of business, even training, you can apply to everyday life. I think any type of adversity is transferable.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's all in the mind, right?
Yep, that is our biggest asset and also our biggest weakness.
And I think especially around like you always say about communication as well, difficult conversations, like you're always going to have difficult conversations within business, whether that be maybe with clients or with colleagues, and you're going to have difficult conversations in day-to-day life with friends or flatmates or whatever it might be. So I think, yeah, there is so much that you'll be practicing in business that is applicable then to, because I think that's what you're great at. You're great at, like I when I witness you having a difficult conversation, it doesn't even seem something that I would think, oh fuck, that would be a hard conversation to have. Like it seems almost easy for you, because I think you do that so often where you've got to have tricky conversations with people, and I think it's just because you have to do it so often that it is something that you know that it's better to get those conversations over and done with, and the sooner the better, in order to let something stew for too long and then therefore too many emotions get involved and blah blah blah. Yeah,
I remember when we first moved into this house, I was meant to have a business partner who I live with, and the reason why we came here was because we were both going to PT out of the gym. After 6 months of me just being in there, I realized that, like, one, we had built the culture within me and my clients. It's just us. We have this private space. And two, an extra 2 people would have been too much.
Yeah.
It's no longer personal training anymore. It's like I'm trying to have this vulnerable conversation with my client, but the other 2 are over there listening, could be listening, right? Likely listening. And I was like, I can't do that. So that was a very tricky conversation to have, to say, I got to pull the pin on that. But the reason why I needed to get that out of the way so fast was because I was struggling to fucking sleep. I had so much anxiety, and I was like, this is taking up so much rent in my head, and I have to be fully responsible to have this conversation. Otherwise, how many more sleepless nights am I going to have?
Exactly.
I'm with my client, I'm thinking about that conversation. I was like, it's now.
And you can feel that tension, like other people can, like I remember I could feel that tension with you, and I'm sure then there would have been that tension in the house of being like, what's happening when, like you said, the sooner you sort of have that conversation and address something, like the sooner you can kind of just get back to how things were. Yeah.
The main thing, I was trying to just obtain my mental clarity again. And that's what I've learned in my professional and personal life to be the number one important thing, is to maintain my mental clarity. What do you do to maintain your mental clarity?
This is a big one. What do I do to maintain my mental clarity? The ocean is a big thing for me. It's funny, I have this weird relationship with the ocean where if I'm not feeling good about myself, or I'm not feeling the best, I don't want to be near the ocean, because I feel like in some way I'm tarnishing her, it, whatever you believe. So I think knowing that I have that to fall back on as well, is that if I really need it, then I can go to the ocean, and I know that I'm going to feel better, but that's a last resort. So it's more of a maintenance for me, day in, day out. If I can go see the ocean, go be with the ocean, go in the ocean, any kind of ocean experience for me really helps me with maintaining mental clarity.
Hard. And what's your Shanae? What do you do?
Mine would have to just be, not necessarily always journaling, but at least writing out lists or things, because I know that that's the things that will keep me up at night, is if I'm lying in bed thinking, oh, I have to remember to do this tomorrow, and tomorrow I have to do that, and I have to make sure I do that. Like if I just quickly write that all down, or even if I have to type it into my notes on my phone if I don't have my journal, like once it's out, then it's out, because I'm like, don't have to think about, will I forget this, because I've just written it all down, and it's sort of a way of just like getting it out of my head, and then I can generally from there switch off, or again reading a fiction book to try and also take you out of your current situation and current reality, and then putting you into a fictional story with characters and their dramas. So sort of I think that's another way to also switch off from the day.
Yeah, escapism, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like watching TV. We all kind of love trash TV, for example.
Yeah. I think it's all with trash TV, there's that also like, oh, I feel like my life is falling apart, but it's not that bad because I haven't put myself on a reality TV. So
I'm all good.
Yeah, my life's fine. Like, I don't have that many problems. Like, I'm all good.
It's the biggest reprieve. It's like when Love Island came out. Bro, I was watching it every day. Like, I was like, shit was falling apart all around me, but I was like, well, at least I'm not them.
I like what you said about you when you schedule, you put your training first. I think that's so beneficial, because I think a lot of people unknowingly what they do is they put everyone else's needs and then save theirs till last. And by that point, after a 40-hour week of work, you've got no more energy to invest in your own health and well-being. So you just say, we'll do it again next week. We'll try again next week. And by that point, a month has passed, 3 months have passed, 6 months have passed, and now you're in this deeper hole of not prioritizing your own self-care. And it's a harder hole to get out of, you know? I think, yeah, what you said about routine and actually scheduling in the times that best serve you, yeah, this is super beneficial.
Oh, don't get me wrong, it still changes. Like, there'll definitely be weeks where I'll plan to go to a 6:45 class and the alarm goes off at 6 and I'm like, no, I feel like shit, I'm staying in bed. And then I'll try again, you know, for a 12:30 or for a 3:30. And there are a lot of times where I don't make any of them, and I write the whole day off as a rest day. But I know that the next day I look at the diary and I'm like, okay, I'm booked in for this class, I'm going to try again. So instead of having, you know, like that weekly reset that a lot of people use, have that daily reset, and it just helps you not lose that grip that you have.
So you do classes for your own training?
Should you?
Yeah, so do you find it hard to train by yourself? Because I do.
Yeah.
All of my training that I show up for 100% of the time is because I've hired someone to fucking take me through it.
Yeah, and I think there's a stigma around that, particularly in the industry, of like, you're working and you're coaching people, or, you know, you have a gym and maybe you don't always train at that place, or you don't train yourself, and it's like, actually, we're human, you know, like, we need that help as well. We need that support.
Absolutely.
And it's actually really nice for us to get outside of the environment that we're in every single day, go somewhere else, try something else, have somebody else coach us and be like, oh, wow, I am actually just the same as everyone else. I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out.
Yeah, it really builds that empathy, for as a coach yourself.
Yeah.
And it can also be a learning tool, I think, as a coach or instructor, by participating in a different class with a different instructor. You can, if you want to, obviously you can switch off and just do the workout, or you can be like, oh, that was a good cue that they said, or I like that, or like, you know, they set that up well, and yeah, you can kind of be learning more about your craft as well.
Yeah, and it's connections as well. Like, we're in this space where a lot of our connections come from our passions, which are, you know, health, movement, holistic health, etc., etc. And what better place to make connections, to build friendships, than an environment that you work in and you thrive in, but somewhere different. So I think creating that community for yourself as well, outside of your community that you're nurturing, is really important.
Yeah. What's something you need to let go of, you know you do, but struggle to?
Something I need to let go of. Perfectionism. I think it really resonated watching Tegan's podcast on this, and it's that need where I think, particularly when you're kind of in that entrepreneurial space and everything that you put out is an extension of you. So particularly on social media or any kind of platform where you're putting out something that is expressing vulnerability or something that is close to you. Heck, I spend like an hour writing up an Instagram post that 20 people are going to like, you know, like, it becomes this all-consuming self-doubt moment of, is this good enough? Is my punctuation correct? Is this, you know, is the wording right here? But people don't care. And yeah, like Tegan said, that 99% of people aren't going to notice, and that 1% of that I've fucked this whole thing up already, but we're rolling with it. I think she said around...
Tegan's listening right now.
Don't say that. What did she say? It was like 99% complete. It's just that 1% that you as a perfectionist are trying to always chase. But nobody's going to know.
So yeah, Tegan's... we asked her the question, so how do you like let go of the perfectionism now? And for her it was like, because Ovi.
Having a kid.
OC? Shit, I fucked that one up. OC. Sorry, Tegan. OC is like waiting for her mother's attention. So she's like, there's no time to be perfect anymore because something else outside of me needs me right now. What helps you manage? Because you don't have kids, right?
No. I feel like that's now a very good solution.
And she wasn't the only one. Nikki Lord was another guest we had that talked about perfectionism, and she was the same way. We said, how are you managing it now? And she's like, to be honest, now that I've got my daughter Macy, like, I just fucking can't. I don't have the time to be spending like an hour on something in particular. Like, I have to just get shit done because I know. And that's when I was like, Jesus, is this the cure to perfection, having a child? Because I'm not ready for that. Just to help with perfectionism.
Some other way.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, what do you do when you're stuck in that cycle?
Obviously don't have kids. So, what do I do? I don't think I have control of it. I think it's the world around me is controlling it because of time. And I think it gets to a point where I'm like, shit, I've got to go to coaching or I've got to go do this. And I'll be like, okay, send, post, whatever it is, done. And I wash my hands clean of that and I leave that at the door. And I think that's the only thing that I have some control of is once it's done, it's done. Don't touch it. Leave it. It's out there. And I think that's really it. I'm not in control at all.
Yeah.
I would be similar in that I find that I'm naturally more productive the more time poor I am because I have to manage my time better. Like if I have the whole day to do a bloody content post, like it's going to take me the whole day to do it. Like I will just keep fluffing around and like rewriting it or whatever. Whereas if I am like, shit, I've only got like half an hour to get that post done before I have to go to here or to go do that, that time pressure makes me less perfectionistic because I'm like, it's either get it done in this half an hour or you're not going to have a post or whatever it might be. So yeah, sometimes being more time poor makes me less perfectionistic, I guess.
But you don't need to be, I think this is one thing I'm still learning as well, you don't need to be time poor, you just need to be more time efficient.
Yes, and
that was, I think it was a book, Working Hard, Hardly Working, by Beverly something, don't quote me.
Grace Beverly.
Yes, that's the one. And she talks about time blocking, the importance of allocating a set period of time where you can either, if it's a big admin task and you need to get into that flow state, allow enough time for you to get into that. But if it's other things like the emails, you have that set period of time, you get it done at the end of that timer, too bad, walk away. And I think the same can be done for the post and the content creation. When you are a perfectionist, you need that deadline to just be like, okay, that's enough. Take a step back, you're done.
When people see the content and the hustle that you're pushing out on social media, what do you think they don't see behind the scenes?
The fact that it's just little old me. I feel like I do quite a good job, particularly on the socials and the website and things, of making it look like we are this established business, and I always refer to it as we, I guess predominantly because I'm used to referring to us as we, but actually we is myself and the business. So we are a collective, and perhaps that use of pronouns is something that people think, oh, okay, so it's a business, there's a couple of people working there, it's it's effective, it's all of this. But reality is, it's just me. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Fake it till you make it. But I try to put out something different to what I'm feeling inside. Yeah,
and it's all part of the journey, right? It's all part of the fun. Just trying to figure out as you go. Speaking of the word collective, we had one of your other co-creators in here not too long ago, Michelle McCormack. Did you want to speak about what inspired you to create the Soul Collective? Because we've heard Michelle's take on it. What was Heather's? And what is it for people who haven't heard that episode?
True. So for context, the Soul Collective is a wahine empowered movement. So I think people have kind of labelled us as a run club, but we're not. We're a lot more than a run club. We are just a group of women who are inspired by other women and want to create a movement around removing the barriers that we as women have to movement, and creating fun opportunities to get people moving. You know, if you've had that period of stagnancy where you haven't trained for whatever reason, or maybe you've just never had the chance to, creating opportunities that are accessible, affordable, and hella fun is pretty much the pinnacle of what we're doing at the Soul Collective. So what was the other question?
What inspired you to do it? So that was what it was.
Me. I think being in the run space particularly, I noticed a lot of barriers for myself around kind of the women's safety, around running alone, running with other people is a challenge, because then, you know, having to hold a conversation with somebody else is really hard. And I was like, if running is the most accessible form of movement, why is it so fucking hard? You know? So I think having that initial thought and then taking a step back and being like, okay, what are the other barriers to other forms of movement? What's stopping people from going into a gym? And I was like, oh, well, it's not a safe space. You have that judgment, you have that ego. Okay, so that's another thing that needs to be tackled. And looking at the movement world from that critical lens made me realize that women have it tough, I think, in the health and fitness world. I think there are a lot of challenges there that can be changed or can be minimized by the support of other women. And I think creating that environment where you can bring women together who are like-minded and just want to learn and grow and connect, you can create something really beautiful from a spiritual and emotional level, but also have that benefit of all of the health, you know, things that come from movement. So, yeah, does that answer the question?
That 100% answers the question. And you ladies have got some run events happening, right? Almost every weekend. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so at the moment we're doing, for November, we're doing 2 weekly runs. So the first run is on Tuesday, 6 a.m. from Takapuna Beach Cafe. We go for a little loma, and then we go for coffee and maybe a little swim. We had our first one this Tuesday, and it was incredible. It was super awesome. And then Thursdays as well, we have from West Haven Marina at 6 p.m.
And are all of your events women's only?
No. So we say, I guess our passion is around supporting women and getting them moving, but men are very much a big part to play in this as well. So particularly for November, we're encouraging both our tāne and our wahine to come together. And there will be other opportunities as well. It's just that the first experience was a women's only event because we were focusing on that sisterhood.
Understood.
Yeah.
We've got just a couple more questions before we end the podcast. The first one is, where can people find you and your businesses if they want to engage?
Okay.
I was like, wait, must be.
I wasn't sure if the question had finished. I was like, where can people find me? So you can find me at Hauora Wellbeing Studio, 20 Newton Road, Grey Lynn. That's the main whare. Or you can search us up online, www.hauorawellbeing.co.nz. I fucked that up as well. I'm panicking.
That's all right. We'll link your stuff to the captions anyway.
Yeah.
And where can people find you exclusively? On Instagram, obviously not your house.
Okay.
What the hell?
You can send your mail too. Where can you find me? The old Instagram is at Heather Reid. Nice and original. Keep it simple.
Nice.
Yeah.
And our final question: if Heather Reid from a year ago, the one who was just about to enter that hard year that you've talked about today, if you could speak to her and give her advice as she's about to venture on this heavy year, what would you tell her?
Don't do it. Psych. I would tell her that she's going to need a thick skin, that there's going to be times where it feels like the whole world is caving in, and you're going to be completely overwhelmed for, I would say, the best part of the entire year, but it's going to set you up and it's going to be worth it. So just hang on in there.
And what gold do you think she's gonna? Do you know she's gonna walk away with, to give her hope?
What do you mean by that?
Like what's going to be her takeaway at the end of a hard year?
Her takeaway.
The silver lining, maybe.
Yeah, that's it, the silver lining.
That you're gonna be heaps more confident in yourself. You're not gonna doubt yourself. You're not gonna question your instinct or your intuition. You're just gonna trust in your belief system for the first time in your life, and that's, you know, the best thing that can come from a shitty year, I think.
Hear the read, everybody.
Woo!